Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Troxel. I'm in Sacramento, California, and I'm so delighted to be the moderator of today's session, the Virginia Bell 100th Birthday Symposium, celebrating relationship-centered dementia care and the best friends approach. I first met Virginia in 1986 when we both worked at the University of Kentucky Sanders Brown Center on Aging. And to say that Virginia, the serendipity of life that we came together is one of the remarkable things about my life, meeting you and having you now as my 30+ year best friend and writing partner in writing a series of books on what's called the Best Friends Approach to Dementia Care. Virginia had just recently received her MSW when I met her at the age of 60, her master's degree in social work. And together we worked across the Commonwealth or state of Kentucky to set up a statewide network of services. Virginia was then and now a thought leader in the field of dementia care. Very early on, she realized that we had to fight stigma, support human rights, and really be there for people living with dementia as well as their care partners. Virginia, again, what an honor to be with you for your soon-to-be 100th birthday. I know you've been an enormous supporter of Alzheimer's Disease International, and I'm glad that you have some of your friends and colleagues today to celebrate your wonderful work. We will begin with a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Nori Graham. Nori is an honorary vice president and former chair of Alzheimer's Disease International and a longstanding friend of Virginia's. Nori, thank you for sharing your thoughts about Virginia's work and her role with Alzheimer's Disease International.
David, thank you very much. It really gives me immense pleasure to take part in this symposium, to honor you, Virginia, to honor your birthday, and to honor all your work and your best friends' approach to care. Virginia has been an early voice for people living with dementia and a long-time champion of Alzheimer's Disease International. Virginia has attended and presented important papers at 30 of our annual national meetings, our conferences. And can we have the next slide, please? She was often accompanied by Wayne, her late husband, wonderful couple. It was such a joy to see them every year. Next slide, please. And at some of the conferences, here's Virginia with her daughter, Laura. I think this was at the Taipei conference back in 2013. And the next slide, please. Here's a collage of photographs of that Wayne and Virginia put together over the years and really represent so many of the people from Singapore, from India, from Scotland, Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, many, many friends that Virginia met at our conferences and gave presentations to. So Virginia has really, over the years, her expertise has been shared with many thousands of people working in this field, all closely associated with Alzheimer's associations. Next slide, please. This next photograph really dates back, I think, over 20 years to a conference we had in Johannesburg in South Africa. And the next slide, please. And it's been my privilege to meet Virginia almost every year at these ADI conferences. Here we are in Puerto Rico. We both share a passion for making a real difference to the lives of people living with dementia and their families, and for disseminating good practice to countries throughout the world. Next slide, please. Just to say a little bit about Alzheimer's Disease International. It was, as you can see from this slide, it was founded in 1984 by 5 countries. They each had a national association. And as you now see, we now have nearly 40 years later, we have 105 countries with national associations. We are there to help countries form an association and then support them as they grow, and then represent them in all these various international groups, as you can see listed here. And really, ADI plays a unique role in disseminating through its members, promoting the importance of quality care for people with dementia worldwide. Next slide, please. And this is our current ADI map. And where you see bright red is where we have associations. A few are still in development, and we still have quite a lot of work to do, but we've conquered already half the world. People living with dementia are individuals with their own personalities, past history, personal history, and the way dementia shows itself is going to be very different from person to person. Good care can only come about if the person caring knows the person with dementia really well and adapts that knowledge to the person they're caring for. People living with dementia, like all of us, need to be loved and treated with affection. This is only possible when the carer knows the person intimately, either because they've lived together for many years or because the carer, whether it be the care worker or the volunteer, spends time getting to know the person as much as possible through family, through friends. The best friends philosophy, developed and championed by Virginia, uses this approach. And from my perspective, it is the most effective approach and needs to be universally applied. Next slide, please. In 2014, I had the privilege of being invited to the 30th anniversary of the Best Friends Day Center in Lexington, Kentucky, set up and founded by Virginia. I visited the day center. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the various some of the activities that go on in the day center. Next slide, please. Here's Virginia with one of the participants of the day center. And the next slide, please. And here's another absolutely lovely photograph. Well, I visited the day center and saw for myself the model of care in action. Each person attending the day center had a volunteer with them who knew them really well. And the obvious friendship between the volunteers and the people attending the day center was a truly warm and exhilarating experience. And to see this approach in action was a winner for me. Next slide, please. But of course, Virginia, using her skills, her knowledge, her experience, was never going to settle for doing one sort of thing. And here she is, a lovely photograph of her at the Lexington, Kentucky Senior Center in 2018. And here she is kicking off the dementia-friendly community for Lexington. A terrific thing to do. Next slide, please. I'd heard Virginia and of course David, with whom Virginia has worked over a long period, talk about the Best Friends approach over many years. And I've read and I've loved their books. And here you see a pile of them at a book signing. Next slide, please. And this is one of my favorite photographs of book signing. You can't quite see David and Virginia behind the table, but there they are. And an enthusiastic queue of people waiting to get their book signed. Lovely. I completely identify with this approach to care. To this day, I teach and talk along very similar lines. Next slide, please. So it's not the slightest bit surprising that Virginia, David, and I have become best friends. David and I have been inspired by Virginia's message, as indeed have all who've come in contact with her. Next slide, please, and the last one. Virginia, we all love you. You are indeed a best friend to all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nori, for such a lovely presentation and for your amazing career and work in this field. I remember, Nori, hearing you at that Lexington event talking about, forgive me if I'm paraphrasing you a little bit roughly, but something like, maybe dementia care isn't as hard as we make it. Maybe it's about informed love. So thank you, Nori, for your wonderful thoughts to kick off this presentation. Our next speaker is a dear friend and colleague of mine as well, Angie Frantz from Prestige Senior Living in a place called Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, British Columbia, but right across the river from Portland, Oregon. Angie herself is the product manager of Prestige Senior Living's Expressions Memory Care program. She's also very involved in their Celebrations program for people in assisted living. Angie, since I've known you, you've been a champion for the person with dementia, for care partners. You apply a lot of innovation in your award-winning career in administration and healthcare in the US. And Angie today will be talking about Virginia's contribution in the world of life story work and about how her company has utilized some of Virginia's work to improve the quality of lives of residents in their programs. Angie.
Thank you, David. It is a great honor to be a part of this panel and to see you in a virtual atmosphere, Virginia. We're so grateful for all the work that you've done for these many years. And we are thankful at Prestige that we have partnered together to be able to share the importance of the best friends approach, as well as my life story. So life story work and dementia care. And back in 2008, 2009, Prestige really got to know David so well, and really discussing what the best friends approach is, as well as how important my life story was to Virginia, and the story that she was telling to all of those around here who were willing to listen and hear. So Prestige Senior Living, it is a family-owned company, as David mentioned, in Vancouver, Washington. I personally hail from Gig Harbor, Washington. We serve residents who live with us in memory care, as well as assisted living, independent living, and our skilled nursing centers. 80 plus facilities and communities around the West Coast in 8 states. And we're really proud to offer the Expressions Memory Care Program. And we have seen such growth in not only our meeting with our residents and understanding them and caring for them, but for our staff, it's been so beneficial in our training, as well as for our families that we get to know throughout this. You know, Virginia's life story was an early proponent, very powerful for all of our social histories. And we knew that with designing my life story and the assistance of David and Virginia, that we knew that it was going to be something that was going to show the world around us of how Prestige was an innovator in the industry with really building my life story in a way that was very comprehensive to all of our residents. So here's a wonderful example. Harry from Louisiana. Imagine how difficult it would be to care if you knew nothing about Harry, that he was a native of Louisiana. His love for New Orleans style jazz and hot and spicy food and just being out in nature was so important to Harry. But professional care partners can use this type of life story and information to foster conversation, to design activities, and add some spice to food as well as to Harry's life. Oops, need to go back one here. So Prestige and David, we worked around building Prestige's My Life Story, for which Prestige actually earned the honor from the International Council on Active Aging back in 2012 as a new differentiator in the industry. And so we were grateful for that recognition. And really, it is a portfolio that's put together of about 5 or 6 pages that includes information about where this person that we're going to be caring for in our communities was born, their siblings, how their family life was built, their schooling and education, what career they chose in life and how it impacted their families, whether they were in a marital situation or had children, grandchildren, what type of military service did they serve in if they were in the military? Did they have a religious background? What are their traditions of faith? Was faith part of their life at all? Do you have a practice or any cultural customs? Maybe you're coming into one of our communities from a different culture, a background, a different race, a different sexual connotation. All of those things add into the care that we provide to this resident that we're going to care for and love. Also, is your English your first language? We know that in many cases, our residents who maybe spoke a different language earlier in life revert back to that conversation through their own native language. And so we want to be aware of those types of things. And what is your daily schedule like? Are you an early riser? Did you work on a farm or live on a farm and go out early in the day to milk the cows or feed the chickens? Or maybe you went to bed late at night. And maybe what time of day did you like to shower or bathe? Was it morning or night? And those types of things that made you feel safe and happy in the mornings when you got up. Did you like to hold a cup of coffee in your hand or read a newspaper? In coordination with My Life Story, we also put together what is called 100 Things About Me. And while we drive a lot of information from My Life Story, this is kind of a continuum. And I like to call it with our staff a living, breathing document. And our team members, they really get into utilizing 100 Things About Me through the life of the resident while they're in our communities. We like for our family members to fill it out along with My Life Story before that resident moves in with us, because we feel that it's a real differentiator in the care that we provide from that first hour of the day when they move in with us. But then the 100 Things About Me are, simple extra things like your favorite ice cream. And we all know that David likes to tell us about how important an ice cream cone is to helping our residents when they're having a difficult day, to just bring them down and bring them joy and some comfort with that ice cream cone in their hand. Do you have a favorite season or time of the year? Maybe you have a favorite song that can help soothe you, or a favorite flower that you like to smell, because we know that all of the sensors are involved when we care for our residents. It's really important that we know what those things are. Maybe a favorite movie, and also some of these things also tell us if there is a trauma in a resident's life too. And so to know some of those things that may cause a little bit of stress, maybe they have some PTSD. So knowing this information not only helps bring them joy, but helps us work around different areas that might cause a little bit of upset or to remind them of a trauma in life. So these parts of the life are really important. And one of the things that I like about My Life Story, 100 Things About Me, is that our staff can continue with this. And I know one of our residents who lived with us for 11 years had 6 of these pages front and back filled out. The staff had filled out several different things about her. And it was so important to get to know her in such a personal way as that best friend. Prestige's Life Story Tools has also helped us with a presentation that we've done with Alzheimer's Disease International this year on I Am a Person with Dementia. And the pandemic certainly showed us a lot about how we need to serve our residents and provide dignity and advocacy for them in places of emergency. And so we put together this I Am a Person with Dementia flyer that travels with our residents to a hospital setting, whether it's through riding in an EMT car, an aid car on the way to the hospital while they're in an emergency ER setting, or they're admitted to a hospital, or perhaps they're going out for a dialysis appointment or a physician's appointment. And so this flyer we put together utilizing My Life Story and having 3 components that our staff can put on that about the resident that's very individualized about them, that might bring them comfort or might cause them a little bit of angst in that emergency situation. And then some teaching tools along the way that, maybe they can't communicate like they used to, or maybe they can't explain their pain, or if they even need to go to the bathroom, or if a light is bothering them, but maybe they just need someone to hold their hand and be their best friend. And so we also put this together to also thank all of those frontline staff who are taking care of our residents, because we want to educate them and thank them for the work that they do every day. And then some of the recommendations that we have as far as a life story, develop a life story survey, just the facts, so that you know those simple things about a resident. We also have what we call our 5 things about me that we do immediately when a resident moves in to put outside their apartment. And that's how we've taken this to utilize that. So at least our staff know 5 things immediately about this person that they are going to care for and take along in their journey. We develop easy cards, that staff can use for quick things. And that's like our 5 things about me. We train staff on how to use My Life Story, such as for Harry with his personalized care and having that, that hot sauce at the table as a condiment for him when he enjoys his meals. The best friends know each other, and we know each other's birthdays. We know what their successes were in life. We know their family members. And that's all it's about, is creating a culture of care and safety and advocacy for these wonderful people that we get to love and care for. And then we discover how using Life Story can build a better culture with our staff and communication. And one of the things that we found is having our staff members fill out my life story and the 100 things about me, so we get to know them better, and we build a culture that really takes care of each other too, not just our residents. And we find that it really helps in so many ways to provide not only for our residents, but for the families and all of those who enter our doors to feel the comfort of what my life story does for all of us. And Virginia, we would just love to say to you, happy birthday. This is one of our expressions communities here in Gig Harbor, Washington, Olympic Alzheimer's residents. And they wanted to say happy birthday and congratulations to you on your 100th. And thank you for all that you've done to share your life with us and your work. A little bit of information about myself and Julie Ginthy, who is also our Vice President of Operations, who helped foster and build the My Life Story program with David many years ago. So thank you so much to all of you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Angie, for that very creative presentation. I really love your idea of a forum that could travel with one of your residents if they have to go to the emergency room or hospital. And some of these quick grab and go tools for staff are very helpful in our world today. I happen to know that Angie and her team will be in London actually at the meeting. So if you want to seek her out, you can ask further questions, but thank you very much, Angie. Our next speaker will be Tonya Cox out of Lexington, Kentucky, who will be speaking about the power of therapeutic engagement at the Best Friends Day Center. Tonya herself has a master's degree in social work. She is the regional executive director at the Homeplace at Midway, Christian care communities. Among Tonya's many talents, pardon me, among Tonya's various talents is that she has worked in university settings, the Alzheimer's Association settings, and now in long-term care. Tonya is also a collaborator on the Best Friends activity books, and she and her organization also embrace the greenhouse model of care. So lots to pack in, Tonya, and thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of it. I am honored. I was counting up the years, and fresh grad out of college, and Virginia took me under her tutelage and has been my mentor for almost 30 years now. And looking back and thinking about all the things that I've learned from you about this. So I'm honored to be part of this and to share about the things we do at the Best Friends Day Center for keeping people engaged and active. So, Virginia, we've talked about this already a little bit, but she was an early innovator of adult day center care, and the Best Friends Day program that she founded just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated our 38th anniversary, which is really exciting. But early on in the early 80s, when this began to take shape for Virginia, she recognized that persons with dementia wanted and needed to remain engaged and active, which was really contrary to the public opinion at the time, when most focus was on family caregivers. And she really found that persons with dementia were missing out and really needed that. And so when she came up with the ideas that she put into place at the Day Center, the program really has kind of shown how therapeutic healing environments can be a successful when we use that Best Friends approach. On top of all of that, she really had a kind of a pioneering vision, and I think Nori mentioned this, of getting volunteers. And she recruited a really strong core of volunteers that provided that friendship and that care at the Day Center. The Best Friends Day Center, which is located in Lexington, Kentucky, was one of the first 19 dementia-specific day centers in the United States. We have a core of over 100 active volunteers who give time every single week to being a best friend at the center. And the center is recognized as a teaching learning model, and it's influenced day center care in the United States and internationally. We have students that come through as volunteers from medical school, from getting degrees in physical therapy and social work and nursing. And so it really is shaping the professionals that are coming forward. But, it started, Virginia really always recognized early on when she was helping with that support group and meeting people with dementia, that a person with Alzheimer's disease has infinite value with remaining strengths and abilities despite the progressive disability caused by the disease. And it's important not to overlook the person still present under the cloak of this disease. The losses make up only one face. The strengths and abilities provide the other face, so important in providing quality care for each person. this philosophy really is what shaped a lot of what came to be at the day center in regards to activities or the way that we engaged our participants, because we know that persons with dementia need engagement. They need it to socialize and strengthen relationships, to feel productive, to experience success, to play and have fun, to build and retain their skills, to give them a sense of control, to fulfill a spiritual need, and to experience growth and learning. And so knowing these needs really is the foundation for the program that was developed at the Best Friends Day Center and the types of things that we did there. And she really shaped a new way of looking at engaging with people with dementia, and recognize that daily life is an activity, that little moments throughout the day with our friends builds those relationships, that relationship-centered care, talking, laughing, going places, and doing things together. So we think about our traditional activity programs and structured activities. That's from the activity calendar. It's the stuff we've got written down, we've coordinated and we planned it. But Virginia also recognized the value in the in-between moments, which is the activities that take only a few seconds and are unstructured and can be very rewarding. Exchanging a smile, calling a person by his or her preferred name, giving a compliment, singing a song together. And so at the Best Friends Day Center, you'll see both. You'll see some planned activities, but you'll see these moments happening between the volunteers and their best friend that are really, really the pearls that create the day. So I wanted to share some of the stuff that we have found to work really well with persons with dementia and in the day center, and they've lasted for a long time. One of the things that Virginia developed early on was this concept of classroom topics or weekly themes. And she recognized that people with dementia still enjoy learning new information and experiencing growth and learning. And so we have a classroom topic that's planned each week, and we do a little class on it. This is just a short little list, but the list is infinite of topics that you can do. And so we've done childhood games, and we've done historical pieces and seasons and weddings and gardening and travel and different holidays. And what we do is we create a class around it. And so, for example, if we were doing something on weddings, we would bring in things that stimulate all 5 senses and engage folks. And so we might bring in a wedding dress. We might taste wedding cake. We might listen to wedding songs and wedding music, talk about wedding folklore, and then weaving in that life story. By knowing the life story of our participants, we can tell stories or have them share stories about their own nuptials and weddings and celebrate that. And everybody has fun, and it creates that classroom, and it's easy to build, and it creates variety and fun. The other thing that we do quite a lot of at the Best Friends Day Center is creative arts. And in fact, we had a program several years ago in which we worked to train our volunteers on how to engage our participants in creative arts activities. And we think about creative arts are not craft. You know, a craft has a right or wrong outcome, but a creative arts allows for expression, and there's no right or wrong. And so it really gives persons with dementia the opportunity to express when maybe they're struggling with communication. And so this is a great picture. I love this picture. It was created at the Day Center by one of our participants, Patricia, and she was always enjoyed drawing this and variations on this theme, and she flourished. And so really looking at bringing the arts and allowing people with dementia to be creative and express themselves in that way. One of the other things I've always thought was really neat that Virginia recognized was that persons with dementia still have a need to give back, to contribute. And so we do several projects that are for others. And in this picture, you can see we're actually making blankets for our local homeless shelter. And it's really giving them a sense of purpose, a sense of opportunity to be engaged. There's lots of different varying levels of participation. So depending on the person's disease, where they are, there's lots of ways they can participate, but it gives them a chance to see and continue to contribute and do good. We've done things like dog biscuits for the Humane Society. We bound some books for the local preschool and these types of things. And then music, the power of music, we know is so important for people with dementia, but it's such a big part of the Best Friends Day Center, whether that's having music on in the background while we're painting, or whether that is inviting someone to come in every afternoon and play the piano while we sing along to familiar songs. We also have entertainers come in. I love this picture of them dancing and just enjoying the moment. And then, you know, inviting our musicians. This is Larry. He's a participant at the Day Center, and he was a very, very talented musician and loved to share his music. And so really giving that opportunity for him to continue to do that and participate. One of the other things that we do that's been really good is work-related type activities, whether that is working in our garden and participating in that, or helping to clean up after an activity. Again, back to the things that we know people need. They need to feel productive. They need to feel purposeful. And so really contributing to the Day Center through some of these work-related activities was something Virginia really recognized early on as a need for people with dementia. All of this is accomplished, as Nori said, through our volunteers. We have, again, a core of over 100 active volunteers. They commit to just 1/2 day per week. Some of them do a little bit more, but most of them, that's what they do, or they come in and provide music. We do give them training, which I think is very important, and Virginia recognized that early on to help them feel confident. And so they get the Best Friends Approach training. They get about 16 hours when they first start volunteering. And then we try to do some ongoing continuing education. They're assigned to a best friend and they get to know them. They read their life story. They find things in common, and they enjoy the afternoon and participate well together. And it's been a huge success. And many of the volunteers will tell you overwhelmingly that they get more than they give by being part of the Day Center. And I think the testament to that is many of them have been volunteering for more than 20 years every week, which is a huge commitment. And you can see the joy that they bring. So I want to say happy birthday, Virginia, and thank you for being my mentor. You know, from your birthplace on a farm in rural Kentucky to London and the world. Thank you for changing the face of dementia care and for being a tireless champion for people living with cognitive loss. The world is better with you in it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tonya. The Day Center remains a very innovative place, and I love the focus on kind of continuing education and lifelong learning. And, you know, even if someone with dementia forgets something 15 or 30 minutes later, as you said, in the moment, they enjoy the experience of learning. You know, there's research in the US that people living in skilled nursing may only get 2 to 3 minutes of individualized attention a day when you back out the med passes and, you know, changing briefs and personal care. So I think your focus on 30-second activities, and you're highlighting in Virginia's role about the activities that are in between the structured times, particularly during our pandemic era, is even more meaningful when time is so essential. A minute here, a minute there really does add up to make a difference in fighting that loneliness and isolation. So thank you for that. Our next speaker is Cathy Krewer, a friend and colleague of mine as well, who will be speaking about spirituality and dementia care, the Touch the Spirit activity program at Christian Horizons. Cathy is a very talented nurse. I think I mentioned she's vice president of clinical professional development, so she has a lot around staff training, staff education. I'm very pleased that Cathy is a master trainer in the Best Friends Approach and recently joined the Global Accreditation Panel of Alzheimer's Disease International, only the second American to have that appointment. Cathy, thank you for presenting today.
Thank you, David. It is really an honor and a pleasure. Second, there we go. To be a part of this symposium. Virginia, we haven't met in person, but it's a pleasure to meet you virtually, and again, to be a part of this session. My presentation and our organization has been working with David actually since 2019. We brought him on as a consultant to really revamp and revitalize our memory care program. We're a faith-based ministry, and so the spirituality aspect of our dementia care, memory care program was very important. And so we know that Virginia was a very early thought leader when it came to spiritual care for persons living with dementia. For our organization and in Virginia's writings, it's very important to treat the human spirit, to open up opportunities for those spiritual needs to be met day to day. Virginia wrote, we do this by creating spaces, by creating spiritual moments for the individuals with dementia, by being a best friend to that person. And in doing so, we're really practicing spiritual care for our dementia residents and population. So a little bit about Christian Horizons. I'm actually presenting from Jacksonville, Florida. But our ministry and our organization is based in St. Louis, Missouri. We have various lines of service: skilled care, assisted living, independent living, in-home care, hospice, and day programming that's just getting launched in the state of Missouri. So our memory care program is the Pathway Memory Support Program. And our aim, our goals center around responding to the experiences of dementia. We do that by implementing contemporary best practices, enhanced associate training. I'm very proud of the work that David and I did on making sure that our associates are very well trained as they assimilate into their new role, not only through coursework, video coursework, but also a workbook of experiential activities. We work to develop creative approaches to care, to really focus quite heavily on activity engagement. And again, in that revamp, in that rebuild, it was very important as a Christian ministry to have a strong spiritual component. So another part of our program, as David mentioned, is Touch the Spirit. And so that part is that spiritual activity and brought to our residents and our clients who are living with Alzheimer's type disease and other dementias. We seek to honor every one of our residents and clients' religious practices and their faith community affiliation. So we understand that spirituality is really an essential part of life. That includes connecting to nature, community, the arts, friends and family, and associate to resident in that best friends approach. So we offer Touch the Spirit programs minimally 3 times a week. And these activities might include things like reading religious or sacred texts, worship services within the neighborhoods, daily devotions, spiritual tea times, exercises such as what are you thankful for, and sentimental reflections. Again, our associates join in on that and talk about what they're thankful for and some of their sentimental and spiritual reflections. So now that in the Midwest, spring has finally sprung. Our communities are doing a lot with gardening and involving our residents and creating pleasant outdoor areas for our resident and client population. We are very privileged and lucky to have chaplains in each one of our settings, either on a full-time or part-time basis. And so their presence is a very strong one in each of our neighborhoods, especially in our residential settings. They're there, they provide worship services, they lead biblical studies. And so that's just a really important part of our mission and our work with our program. Pet animal visits, shelter visits, using and showing documentaries about nature and travel are a big part of our daily activities. So we also recognize how important music and exercise are. That may be a day dedicated to Elvis Presley music, or it might be hymns more spiritual in nature and Christian hymns. Same thing with exercise. So, we encourage our associates to add a little pizzazz and creativity to all of that. We also utilize the weekly themes and especially trying to pull in our associates and maybe do special dress down days or themed dress, themed activities throughout the week. And so, we're just really, I think David would acknowledge, we're just getting started. We're about a year in. I think the pandemic slowed us down a little bit, but we have a lot of creativity, a lot of enthusiasm around our calendar enhancements that are in place. The other thing is the 30 things to do in 30 seconds or less. So we actually sent posters to all of our communities to display. So very easy for staff to reflect on and then to act on with our residents and clients. So I think one of the neatest things about our Touch the Spirit program are these activity cards. And so these are really designed to acknowledge the associate who goes above and beyond when touching the spirit of a resident or a client. These are designed to be used associate to associate. And then we encourage them to display those on a special bulletin board so families and visitors and everyone can see what our associates are doing in that spiritual realm. So we know that the importance of spirituality and touching the spirit has been, well documented and discussed amongst very famed researchers, including Dr. Kitwood, who said that the family and professional caregivers are physicians of the human spirit. And so when Christian Horizons associates participate in this program, they're living and practicing the words of Dr. Kitwood. And we actually have canvases displayed in all of our neighborhoods that reflect this sentiment. Certainly, we all pray for a day when we find that answer to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. But until that time, we are really working to support our staff for that best friends connection, to practice that friendship, that love, and touching the spirit of our residents and clients with cognitive loss. So for recommendations, work to build formal spiritual care into your dementia program. And again, not always about religion and faith, but rather what are those things in the resident's life story that brought them spiritual joy, spiritual awakening, or recognition. Look for inspirations in the work by, John Swinton, The Best Friends Approach, and from really quite a few resources available online. So encourage staff to recognize that even those short little moments, as David pointed out in his statistic just a few minutes ago, that 30 seconds, that 45 seconds, sitting down and just engaging with a resident, how powerful that can be in touching their spirit and really ultimately reflects spiritual care at its best. So we're working very hard, especially, in light of the last 2 years and so much isolation and to really promote those friendships and those bonds and reduce loneliness and reduce that isolation. So in doing so, we're working to empower that staff to really develop authentic relationships through planned and structured and unstructured interventions, help to them and allow them to create those spiritual opportunities and spaces. So Virginia, thank you. David, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this session. Happy birthday. Thank you to both of you for all that you have contributed to the care of residents experiencing Alzheimer's and other types of dementia.
Thank you very much, Cathy. I love the fact that your organization, even though it's a faith-based organization, is looking at this broader definition of spirituality through nature and meaningful activity and purpose, which I think is so valuable. I know Virginia, our dear friend, your late husband, Wayne, spoke so eloquently about spirituality and dementia. And I also just want to applaud you. I think the idea of having really a designated named program, which sort of elevates spiritual care, I think is very powerful. And there certainly are wonderful resources out there for groups wanting to do spiritual care. Thank you very much, Cathy. Now I'd like to introduce David Nesbit, who actually started off his introduction to dementia care as a volunteer at the day center. He has had a successful career in the automotive industry, owned his own businesses. And I think this is sort of your second career, David, sort of like Virginia started her second career at age 60. We now have pulled you into the Alzheimer's and dementia world, where he's a trainer in the Second Wind Dreams virtual dementia experience. He's a best friends master trainer. He's still a volunteer with the day center. And he also has been very instrumental in really a worldwide movement underway now to create dementia-friendly communities. And today, David will talk about creating dementia-friendly communities with the program that Virginia Bell began in Virginia. You started to inspire in your mid-90s to Never a Dull Moment and began to do this great project in Lexington. David, please go ahead.
Well, thank you. My name is David Nesbit, and I am excited and very privileged to be just one of the group members that are here to honor Virginia Bell today. She is my great friend, and she's certainly my mentor. She's taught me so much. The first time I heard dementia-friendly communities was in 2016. Virginia had just come back from Budapest, the ADI conference there. We were at Best Friends, and it was training week, so we're all sitting around a table. And Virginia comes in, and she is the trainer for the day. And she started talking about dementia-friendly communities and what she heard and what she saw and what she would see with other countries and what they were doing. And she described this environment where everybody was trained and everybody knew how to act and treat those with dementia. And I could see the sparkle in her eye. I saw this. This wasn't show and tell. This was the next frontier. You could tell we were getting ready to take on something here, and Virginia was going to lead us. And that's exactly what happened. I heard it once, I heard it 10 times that day. Virginia kept saying, "It is just wonderful. It is just wonderful." And she meant it. What we feel a dementia-friendly community is, it's a town, it's a city, it's a village where people living with dementia and their care partners are supported. They're understood. They're respected. And when I say support, I don't mean that person-centered care that you get with the best friends approach. I'm talking about from the governments, from municipalities. They need support from their communities to access better transportation. They need support from their communities for more options for housing, to be encouraged to participate in civic and social participation. To be a dementia-friendly community, if you look at it from the start, it can be daunting. You think, size of Lexington, wow, to get 100% dementia-friendly, we have so much to do and so much is in front of us. Look at all the sectors we have to train. We have to go police departments, fire departments, EMTs, retail businesses, city employees, restaurants. Let's not forget our institutions of faith. How about our primary doctor's offices? I've got a story for you about that in just a second. Grocery stores, building supply stores. Every retail door needs to be trained if you're going to get to truly a dementia-friendly community. So we have a lot in front of us. And this is where Virginia Bell comes in. When she is on our advisory council, she attracts people with that passion. That's how we build it. We build it with passion. And she attracts those people. She would come to our meetings, and she was not an honorary member of this council. I promise you that. She's active. She's there every Zoom meeting, every meeting in person. She's there. She has something to say. We all listen. But I'll never forget one meeting. It was 2018. We were prepping. It was late 2018, probably December. We were prepping for our big community kickoff in January of 2019. This is all before COVID. And somebody asked her toward the end of the meeting, said, "Virginia, how do you think we're doing? How do you think we're doing?" And of course, she had some wisdom, sage advice. She told us some good things, but I remember how she closed. And she closed by simply saying, It's been a lifelong dream of mine to help my community become a dementia-friendly city. She says, on my next birthday, I'll be 98. So I would appreciate it if you all would hurry up. And that's Virginia, she meant it too. She meant it. So also, when dealing with Virginia, I know, hey, we're here to honor her, but I honor her in a way that she expects us to teach. We're always teaching. Her volunteers, she's always got us teaching. So let me tell you why some of the advantages that we see from becoming a dementia-friendly business. First and foremost, you're going to have a competitive advantage. The Alzheimer's Society in 2013, I believe, told us 83% of people with memory problems will end up switching or have switched where they shop because of how their needs are tended to. Now, the second big advantage is increase in revenue. If you can become dementia friendly and you can keep that 83%, you're also keeping the care partners. You're keeping their families and friends. The support groups of a person living with dementia can be quite large, and they can be very, very loyal. The last reason, once you've gone through dementia-friendly business training, your employees have an awareness. They have a knowledge that they didn't have before. And what it really amounts to is everybody that comes through those doors gets off the wall customer service. And that's what we're all in business for. You mentioned I'm in the automotive business. I changed oil. I was in the customer service business. We just happened to work on cars. And I remind people that. How did we build our advisory committee? Again, I told you earlier, we started with passion. This is not a well-paid job. It can be very daunting if you look at the big picture. But we started with passion, and Virginia attracts those with passion. She does. And we have some members like me that own our own business. We have active care partners. We actually have people living with dementia that are working on some of our projects. We have foundation members like University of Kentucky, Sanders Brown Center on Aging. We have the University of Kentucky Elder Care Services. We have other foundation members like the Alzheimer's Association, the Area on Aging folks here in Lexington, the Bluegrass Care Navigators, which is the old hospice. We have the team. We have got a quality team, and we need it because there's much to do. There's much to do. What we also decided to do is we followed the path of dementia-friendly America. This laid out a clear path to how we could get to dementia-friendly status. And I am very pleased to announce that early in 2022, this year, Lexington was announced that we were the first city in the state of Kentucky to be certified dementia-friendly. Now, that gave us all great pride in what we do. We still know we have a lot to go. We have a long way to go before we're finished. We have, I mentioned COVID interfered with our activities. We didn't let that stop us. We Zoomed a meeting. We built infrastructure. We built training teams and marketing teams and designation teams. We went out and found our volunteers, and we activated our volunteers, and we conducted training sessions for our volunteers so we can have more boots on the ground. That's how you build sustainability in a dementia-friendly community. We also took a 40-minute class. We've got it on CE Central, which is UK's continuing education site. So we have all of our businesses take this class before we come to their site for their on-site training. It's a beautiful program. I would like, as I close, to tell Virginia that, talking about community spread, Virginia, your community spread didn't start with dementia-friendly Lexington. It didn't. I remember back in 2015, I was sent to a grocery store after my dad was diagnosed from his primary care doctor with dementia. We were sent to a grocery store with 2 prescriptions. That's all we got. We had no path. We had no resources. We didn't know what we didn't know. That's what we have to stop today. We have to build a community. When they get a diagnosis, they know where to turn, and they know how to get help and where to get help. So Virginia, your volunteers, what I did is I joined Best Friends. That's why I went to Best Friends, so I could find out how to take care of my dad. And guess what? She taught me. They taught me. The volunteers at Best Friends, they not only participate on their day every week, but when they go home, we hear it all the time. We take what we've learned at Best Friends and we take it to our families. We take it to our communities. We take it to our churches. We take it to our friends and our neighbors. So Virginia, you've been teaching a long time. You've got a lot of tentacles out there, and I could not be more proud to be one of them. Thank you, Virginia. I love you, and I can't wait to work the next century with you.
Thank you very much, David. Your enthusiasm and excitement is really moving, and I reflect about how so many people I've met in this great career that I've enjoyed, and all of you have enjoyed, have been former family care partners who, Virginia, I'm thinking about our dear friend Marie Masters, who once told me, who I met in the 80s in Kentucky, whose husband Ralph had younger onset Alzheimer's. She said, Alzheimer's is the worst thing that ever happened to me. But, as I reflect, it might have also been the best thing. And it's sort of a shocking thing to say, but she said, yes, I started volunteering. I started advocating. I went to the state capitol. I raised funds. I led support groups. I joined an Alzheimer's board. I did things I never dreamed I would ever be able to do. And so people like you who have taken your experiences and then in turn given to others, it's really a foundational piece of the Alzheimer's societies around the world, including ADI. So many volunteers have been like me, and many of us here are former founding members as well. Virginia, you get the last word, and it's just that's been my emotions are running high. I'm glad I made it through this last hour. I hope you have. And Virginia will wrap up with just some reflections about her work with Alzheimer's Disease International, about the panel, and about maybe some predictions for the next century ahead. Virginia, you might still be here with us the way things are going. Virginia, go ahead and take yourself off mute and jump in.
Thank you, David. I send greetings to all of you meeting at the conference there in London, but also greetings to those online. I can't tell you how thrilled and how lucky I feel to be presenting at yet another Alzheimer's Disease International Conference. ADI has been such a big part of my life for over 30 years. In fact, without knowing it, I go back really almost to the beginning of Alzheimer's, because in 1984, when we were launching our day center, 3 or 4 delegates from other countries were meeting our president in Chicago and developing plans for an international conference. And so for the next 4 years, I was not able to go, but I knew about it. And so finally in 1989, I attended my first conference in Dublin, Ireland. And it was there that I met you, Nori, and we've been friends since then. But I've met so many different people from all over the world, including many friends who have spoken who have dementia. And I know that some of these friends David had given us quotes for our books. So when I think about Alzheimer's Disease International, if I could sum it up in just one word, I would say community. Because countries come together with very, very different politically, economically, socially, theologically, but all of that fades away and we become family. We are there to help each other. And this has been a big part of our day center, because a person with dementia longs to be in community. They long to be working with others who understand them. And so I can't tell you enough about how much ADI has meant to me. I like to think, though, that it's sort of a give and take proposition. I never have left an Alzheimer's conference without taking valuable information to use, either in daily life or with the day center or in the community. But I also feel that I had a little part in getting information, because at each of the conferences I spoke about best friends, and best friends has gone around the world, because I've been back to 2 countries to visit what they have done with best friends, which has been so exciting. But another little extra, after the conference in your countries, after I left the conference, my husband and I would take our vacation either before or after, and we got to take a look at your beautiful countries. You know, all the way from 400 miles north of the Arctic Circle, when I attended the conference in Helsinki, to all the way to Cape Horn, just the jumping off place to Antarctica, when I attended the conference in Buenos Aires, with about 25 countries in between. I got to see your beautiful countries. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. Now, when I think about the future of Alzheimer's disease, I'm very positive. I think the work will continue on much research onto the cause. But more than that, I think we'll be able to diagnose Alzheimer's earlier, so that more programs can be for those early on, so that they can continue to learn and grow. But also, I think that we will identify more different types of dementia. It's so important to have all of these different types, because it has a lot to do with care. But I think dementia care will keep evolving. When I think about my life of about 100 years, I go back to care that was so demeaning. People were treated as a non-person, and think how we have evolved, and it will keep evolving. And I think it will be open to more people. And I think Alzheimer's Disease International will have a big part in being sure that it gets to as many out of the way places as possible. David will get out into the community more. But also, I'm impressed, I'm excited about brain wellness. Already we know that the brain likes to be physically and mentally filled. And there are places now in the United States where you not only go in to have a physical workout, but you can have a mental workout, and you can get hooked up. And all of these things are so exciting to me. And the brain certainly loves good food. And if the brain loves socialization, I often say when you get older, you tend to get too comfortable, and we need to reach out. So brain wellness is going to make a big difference. So I would like to just take a moment to thank all of you, thank the panel for all of those good words. I have a big head, but the most important thing, I want to thank you for lifting up all the different aspects of best friends. Best friends works. We were told 30, 40 years ago when I was first thinking about the idea, it would never happen, but friendship is so therapeutic. Friendship is amazing. So if I just, again, thank all of you, but if I could leave you with one word, a little mantra, I would say, may today hold the promise of many bright tomorrows. And I hope to see you next year at Alzheimer's Disease Conference. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Virginia, and happy birthday. Thank you to our panelists, and I hope all of you enjoy this wonderful conference at London Alzheimer's Disease International.